There is something in you that has never faded. It has only been forgotten. An ancient, silent, living memory, waiting for the right moment to be awakened. This video is for the chosen, those who feel they came with a purpose, but have long carried the weight of not knowing exactly what that was. Perhaps you feel this in a recurring dream, perhaps in a pain that has no explanation, or even in that moment when everything seems normal, but your soul cries out for something that is not here. This emptiness is not weakness, it is the sign that the memory is about to return. You are not here just to survive. You came to remember. Remember who you are. Remember what you carry within you. Remember the mission that your soul accepted even before it was born. And this does not come from outside. It does not come from books or speeches. It comes from within. And it starts in silence. In this video, you will learn a simple but powerful practice. Something that activates the spiritual memory that has always been there. A technique that is not learned in schools, but is recognized with the heart. And if you have made it this far, it is because you are ready. If this message resonated with you, follow the channel and continue with us. The journey is just beginning. The silent call. Some people go through life as if they are sleeping with their eyes open. They live on autopilot, follow patterns and fulfill routines. But amid the sleeping crowd, there are those who feel something different. A silent restlessness begins to grow. It doesn't hurt, but it also doesn't leave you at peace. It's as if something is trying to awaken within your chest. This feeling doesn't have a specific name. It's not sadness, nor anxiety. It's something deeper, like you are searching for a lost part of yourself. You don't quite understand what is happening, but you feel that there is something important that needs to be remembered, as if you have already known a light that now seems distant. This call doesn't shout, it whispers. It appears in silences, in dreams, in pauses. It's that moment when you look at the sky and feel that there is something beyond. It's not about religion or rules, it's about origin, about remembering that your existence has a purpose greater than simply surviving. Sometimes this call comes with discomfort. Things that once made sense lose their luster. Relationships, conversations, environments. Everything starts to seem small. Not because you think you are superior, but because your soul has begun to seek something more true. It is the beginning of the return home. And you try to explain to others, but almost no one understands. Because the call is not collective, it is personal. It is yours. And no matter how strange, confusing, or lonely it seems, it is real. The seed has been activated. Memory has begun to move. And even if you try to ignore it, something within you has already responded. This awakening is subtle but powerful. It doesn't require grand actions. It simply invites. It invites you to look within more attentively, to silence the noise of the world and hear what has always been there, your essence, that which has never been forgotten, only silenced by the demands of life. The soul knows the way. It recognizes the signs. That's why you get emotional with certain words, certain songs, certain encounters. It's not a coincidence. It's memory. Something inside you knows it's time to return. Not to a physical place, but to a purer and truer state of consciousness. The silent call is an ancient password. It doesn't ask for haste or perfection. It only asks for presence. That you stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and feel. Because the memory doesn't come from the mind. It comes from the soul. And it only reveals itself when you allow yourself to listen to what is within. If you feel that this text describes what you are experiencing, then you have already begun. The call has reached you. It doesn't matter your story, age, religion, or past. When the soul awakens, nothing can stop it. From here on, everything changes. Because now you know. There is something within you that is ready to remember. The veil over memory. It wasn't your fault. Since childhood, you have been conditioned to forget, to doubt what you felt, to obey without question, to repeat without understanding. The system, culture, and even those close to you were part of this process. Little by little, your truth was being muffled. And what was natural began to seem strange. The memory of the soul does not disappear, but it is pushed to the background, as if it were covered by veils. Layers upon layers of expectations, rules, fears, beliefs, and pressures have been placed over your essence, not to destroy it, but to keep it asleep. And so, you learned to distance yourself from yourself. This disconnection became normal. Growing up came to mean forgetting. Being an adult became synonymous with ignoring intuition, hiding feelings, controlling impulses. And over time, you began to believe that you were only what others said you were. The mirror came to reflect the character, not the soul. But even behind all of this, something within you remained alive, like an ember hidden under the ashes, waiting for air, for silence, for presence. The soul does not forget who it is. It simply waits for the moment when you decide to look within again, with courage and truth. The remembrance of the soul does not activate with effort. It does not need to be taught. It only needs space. When the noise of the mind quiets, when the roles fall away, when the external search tires you, that is when the veil begins to tear. And what seemed lost starts to return. It is a subtle process. Sometimes it comes with tears, sometimes with deep silence, other times with a feeling of longing that you don't even know where it comes from. But it is the longing for yourself, for a state of being you have already known, even if you don't remember when or where. This reunion does not require you to change who you are. On the contrary, it asks you to allow yourself to be, without masks, without the roles you have worn for so long. Because what needs to awaken is not something new. It is what has always been there, waiting for you to say, I am ready to remember. The soul is not in conflict with you. It does not accuse you. It calls. It invites. And when you accept this invitation, you begin to realize that everything you learned to fear was not true. That everything you thought you needed to conquer was already within. The memory of the soul is your map. To awaken is to remember. And to remember is an act of reconnection, a process of returning home, without leaving the place. Each time you silence, breathe consciously, and allow yourself to just be. Something inside begins to move, and the veil, which seemed so thick, begins to dissolve. The truth is that you never lost who you were. You just forgot for a while. But the time of forgetting is coming to an end. Because there is something in you that wants to live authentically, that wants to love without fear, serve with truth, create with soul. That something is you, before the fears, before the lies. If you feel that you are beginning to remember, do not be alarmed. It is the natural process of the soul when it is touched by truth. Do not fight against it. Breathe, accept, walk. Because the veil does not cover forever. And once the remembrance awakens, there is no way to go back to sleep. The forbidden practice. There is a practice that is not learned in books nor taught in schools. It is not found in religious altars or formal systems. Because the world has learned to value everything that is external, loud, and visible. But this practice walks in the opposite direction. It is silent, internal, simple, and precisely because of that, it is powerful. The forbidden practice begins with silence. Not the silence of the environment, but inner silence. The kind that arises when you stop distracting yourself, fleeing, or filling every space with noise. It is when you sit down, close your eyes, and just breathe. Without trying to understand, without seeking answers, just breathing, being there, whole. In the beginning, the mind screams. It wants movement, distraction, control. But over time, something aligns. The breath becomes an anchor. The body relaxes. The soul begins to appear. It's as if a new frequency opens up, a different vibration, a field of presence where everything makes sense, even without explanation. This practice does not require effort. It does not ask for complicated rituals. It imposes no rules. It simply invites. It invites you to return to the now, to feel what is present, to realize that behind all the voices, there is something that has always been there. The living consciousness, the memory of who you are. Upon entering this state of presence, the masks begin to fall. You stop identifying with your fears, with the roles you have taken on, with the expectations you were carrying. You simply are. And this being is light, real, tranquil. It does not want to impress anyone. It does not want to understand everything. It just wants to be whole. It is not about thinking positively, nor about fleeing from what is difficult. This practice reveals what exists, and it is not always beautiful. Sometimes you will encounter anger, sadness, guilt. But all of this is part of the journey, not to paralyze you, but to be seen, embraced, and dissolved with love. Over time, this practice becomes a habit. Then it becomes a state, and then you begin to live differently. Not because you learned something new, but because you remembered what it is to be whole. The body feels, the heart feels, the soul responds, and each breath becomes a silent prayer, a conversation with the invisible. This is the forbidden practice. Not because it is wrong, but because it is too powerful to be controlled. It restores freedom. It takes control away from the system. It makes the chosen remember that they are not part of a machine, but of a living creation. You are spirit. You are presence. You are now. The awakening of frequency. You are not just matter. You never were. Your body is part of the experience, but it does not define who you are. There is something much more subtle, more alive and deeper pulsating within you. Your frequency. A unique vibration that carries your essence, your eternal story, your divine origin. And it is this frequency that begins to awaken. For a long time, this vibration has been muffled. Fears, guilt, traumas, and limiting beliefs formed dense layers that covered your true light. Every accumulated hurt, every lie accepted as truth, every abandoned dream, all of this created noise. And this noise distanced you from yourself. The awakening of frequency is the process of removing what is not yours. It's like tuning an instrument. You do not change the original note. You simply remove what was making it out of tune. It's not about adding knowledge. It's about making space. When you start to cleanse yourself internally, your natural vibration begins to emerge again. This process does not happen all at once. It's like a filter being replaced gradually. First, you notice that certain songs, conversations, and environments bother you more than before. Then you begin to feel more deeply what you previously ignored. Old emotions resurface to be released, and you learn to listen to your body and your energy. The frequency of the soul is subtle, but powerful. It does not need to prove anything. It simply radiates. And when this frequency begins to shine without blockages, you start to attract what is in tune with it. People, opportunities, answers. Everything starts to align, not by effort, but by vibrational coherence. Many confuse this with magic. But it is not magic. It is presence. What you emanate returns. What you hold reflects. And the more you allow your vibration to be clear, the lighter and more truthful you become. Peace ceases to be a concept and becomes a felt reality. It is common to feel discomfort during this process. The body may react. Forgotten emotions come to the surface. You start to see patterns in yourself and in others that previously went unnoticed. But this is not a sign of error. It is a sign that you are tuning in again to your deepest truth. At this point, the practice becomes essential. Inner silence, conscious breathing, non-judgment. All of these elements help maintain the active cleansing. You become your own sacred space, a place where the soul can breathe. And the more you breathe with intention, the more the frequency stabilizes. This frequency is not something sought outside. It has been within you from the beginning. It always has been. What changes is your willingness to hear it, to feel, to trust. And every time you choose to be present, you strengthen this attunement. And it begins to guide your steps with lightness. When your frequency awakens, you cease to react to the world. You begin to respond from your center. Doubts quiet down. Decisions become clearer. The path does not become easier, but it becomes more aligned. And this changes everything, because you stop surviving and begin to live with soul. Vibration is not just a spiritual detail. It is the foundation of reality. Everything is energy, and when you align with who you truly are, the world around you also reorganizes, not because it changed, but because you changed. And this silent, internal, and profound change transforms everything. The recognition. In the midst of the process, something changes. It's subtle, but profound. You begin to remember, not facts, dates, or stories, but a feeling, a wordless memory, as if an ancient light were reigniting within you. It's like coming home after a long time and realizing that it has always been there. This memory is not mental. It is vibrational. You recognize a frequency, a state of being, something that was asleep but never ceased to exist. You look at yourself in the mirror and feel something different. Your gaze is steadier. Your heart is calmer. You feel that even without having all the answers, you are on the right path. Recognition arrives without noise. It does not come with great revelations. It comes with small certainties. You notice that certain truths that once seemed distant now make sense, that certain words resonate differently, that certain choices now have more purpose, and without realizing it, you begin to move with more intention. At this point, the soul whispers, "I am." 3 simple words, but with immense power. I am is not a title. It is not an achievement. It is a state, a reminder that your essence is whole, sufficient, alive, and that it does not need external validation to exist. This recognition is one of the most sacred moments of awakening. Not because it is grand, but because it is true. It marks the beginning of integration. The soul ceases to be something separate from life. It begins to express itself in every gesture, every word, every silence. You are no longer searching for who you are. You are living as who you are. And at this point, the search transforms. You are no longer trying to find yourself. You are allowing yourself to be. You are trusting in the presence you feel. You are letting your energy speak louder than your fears. And this permission opens doors that once seemed locked. Recognition also brings responsibility. Now that you remember, you can no longer pretend to forget. You begin to notice the places where you are still hiding, the relationships where you are still diminishing yourself, the habits that still feed an old you. But instead of guilt, compassion comes, clarity comes. You understand that the process is ongoing, that the memory is alive, that it is not enough to remember once. You must choose each day to live from that memory, to be faithful to who you really are, even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. And this fidelity starts from within. The most beautiful thing about this process is that it does not lead you to want to impress anyone. True recognition does not seek applause. It seeks alignment. You become your own reference, and the tranquility that arises from this is something that words cannot explain. It can only be felt. If you have made it this far, breathe, feel, honor this moment. Recognition is the confirmation that you are returning, not to a past, but to your eternal origin. And remembering this, even in silence, changes everything. The shadow also awakens. Remembering who you are also means facing what you tried to forget. When the light of consciousness begins to shine, it illuminates everything, including the dark corners of the soul. Old wounds, suppressed guilt, unresolved fears come to the surface, not to punish you, but to free you. What is seen can be healed. The shadow is not your enemy. It is part of the journey. It is made up of everything that has been repressed, denied, hidden. It is the pain you did not want to feel, the choices you are ashamed of, the emotions you learned to hide to be accepted. All of this forms the shadow, and it only asks for one thing: to be seen with truth. Upon awakening, you do not suddenly become pure. You become real. And being real includes accepting the duality within yourself. Light and shadow, strength and fragility, love and fear. You do not need to blame yourself for having a shadow. You only need to have the courage to face it head-on with humility and responsibility. This part of the process is intense because it demands honesty. It requires you to stop pointing outward and start observing within. The shadow reveals itself in judgments, in disproportionate reactions, in triggers. But instead of fleeing, you learn to breathe with it, to listen to it, to understand its origin, and little by little dissolve it. The practice becomes a mirror. And what appears in that mirror may scare you at first. But if you keep looking with love, you will see something beyond the pain. You will see the wounded child who just wanted to be loved. You will see the teenager who felt rejected. You will see the adult who did the best they could with what they had. And this perspective heals. The living consciousness. Over time, something changes profoundly. What was once a practice transforms into presence. It is no longer about techniques or methods. It is about living in a state of constant awareness. You no longer need to remember all the time. You become what you remember. The truth ceases to be sought and begins to be lived. You act differently. Your words have a different vibration. Your silences do too. The choices come from another place, not from fear or obligation, but from coherence with who you have become. And this becoming is not a character. It is the free expression of your essence, an essence that is at peace with what it is. There is no longer a need to prove anything. You no longer need to convince anyone. The awakened soul does not need a stage or an audience. It simply is. And this being touches, inspires, and transforms effortlessly, not through appearance but through presence. Your existence begins to be a living reflection of your consciousness. The living consciousness is not perfect. It is honest. It continues to feel, to make mistakes, to learn. But it no longer loses itself. It does not deceive itself as much. Because there is a firm center within you, and from it you live. It is not a distant elevation. It is radical simplicity. You simply live with truth. This state does not isolate you from the world. On the contrary, it connects you more deeply. You listen more, judge less, love more, demand less, serve more, expect less, because you understand that everything is part of it, that each encounter is a mirror, that each situation has something to teach and to remember. With this awareness, even difficulties change form. Pain becomes a portal. Conflict becomes an opportunity. Life becomes a journey, no longer a burden, but a path. A path that, even uncertain, you walk with faith. Because you know where you came from. And you feel where you are returning. The journey back home, remembering, is not a magical moment. It is a process. A long road, sometimes silent, often solitary. But it is the only road that truly leads you back to yourself. And the first step is not outward, it is inward. If you have made it this far, it is because you have already begun to walk. The practice that awakens your soul is not found in ready-made formulas or external promises. It is hidden in the small moments of presence, in the silence that you tend to avoid, in the breath that you never notice, in the discomfort that insists on revealing what still needs to be healed. It is simple, but it requires courage. Each time you silence the world and listen to your essence, something aligns, something opens, and little by little you begin to remember. Remember who you are. Remember what you carry. Remember why you came here. It is not about being perfect. It is about being whole. And whole is one who allows themselves to feel, to err, to love, and to begin again. Memory is the compass. Presence is the map. And practice is the step. Walk with faith, without haste. You do not need to arrive quickly. You only need to continue. Because those who choose to remember are already returning home, to the center, to the truth, to themselves. Chosen, you are not lost. You are awakening, and that is already sacred.